Hey, this is Peter. Tonight I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, and what we're talking about tonight is music cues in film. We're talking about music, so specifically soundtracks. You know, if you want the Rolling Stones in your film, or the Dropkick Murphys in the case of The Departed, which is shot right behind me, of course, as in most of Boston's The Departed now. So, the songs that you want to put in your film, I realise that I've mentioned Scorsese twice so far. You know, if we think about maybe even, is there anyone else? Yeah, of course, there's Francis Ford Coppola with Apocalypse Now using The Doors. There's Wong Kar-wai using California Dreaming. There is, you know, we're talking particularly songs because, you know, as a new filmmaker, one of the few things you have, I mean, Quentin Tarantino, there's another one. One of the few things you have is the ability to listen to music and then go, oh, that sounds cool, I'm going to put it in a film. Is that the best idea? Well, I tried this with Art Blakey's song Moanin', which I really wanted. I spent years planning and editing and walking around listening to the song, kind of method directing in my own town, like looking up in the rain, looking up to buildings in the rain, going do 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 do. Can't sing anymore because I'd have to pay $8,000 in order to fucking use it. And you might be thinking, well, ain't you got a good enough producer that can get you, you know, a low cost or something? Well, I ain't got Tarantino's producer, unfortunately. You know, not many people do have that. So, by the way, just forget this idea. Just stop the video right now. Just stop even listening to me, because there is absolutely no way you are gonna get that cool song in your film. It is not gonna be there at the end. You know, this isn't like a license plate. This isn't like filming a building or filming someone and then turning around at the last second and saying you can't shoot me, or, you know, you can't have that license plate, you can't have that brand in the film or something. When does that ever happen? Whereas a song, the copyright infringement just instantly kills you. Right, and don't even think about using it for some kind of temp track that you're going to replace with your own score later on, or you're going to replace with a different song later on. It ain't going to be the same thing. You know it, I know it, a different version of it, or a cover that you got your mates to do, or some band, ain't going to be the same. So the reason why you wanted it was for a reason. So unless you're going to get that exact song, and you've already got it, it's promised, it's so signed by fucking, you want Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin, you know, if you talk to him, maybe he'll give you a fucking deal, but you ain't gonna get fucking Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin or whatever to, you know, do it for less than like $8,000 or something, because they know they can cash in money. And, you know, you can ask them, please do ask them ahead of time if it is that important to you. But in my way of thinking though, what I learned from that is that you don't actually need songs to make a film. You don't actually need to do it that way in order to make a film, and the limitation forces you to think more creatively. So what can you do? I've always used scores, but what can you do without scores or songs? Can you make a film like that? Can you even do that, man? Woman, can you even fucking make a film without using a song as backup, or a score as backup, or certain cues as backup? Is it even possible? You shouldn't have to, because music cues are one of the best things you can use to like spark someone's emotion. Like right there, you can just be like, right now I'm playing Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones, right now I'm playing Bob Dylan, now I'm playing Joni Mitchell, now I'm playing some fucking Kanye West song, now I'm playing Jay-Z, you know, very different artists in the same genre kind of idea, you know, very, even different songs, of course, you know, you play a different beats per minute is going on in every single different song, you know, from an artist. So this is a real thing which matters to your film and matters towards score composition more than anything, or just, you know, cues by having maybe tin pots, the sound of a tin pot, or the sound of seagulls just coming in at a certain rate, a certain beats per minute. That is like music. You know, dialogue is like music, sound is like music, tin pots, you know, what is so different between banging a few drums or clapping a few hands in rhythm? What is so different between that and an actual piece of music? Well, there's a clear difference, you know, between that and the Rolling Stones, but and one has a lot more kind of content and richness to it. But really, your film should be where the richness is. Every scene should be where the richness is, not, relying off the back of a certain artist. Really, you should be using these songs to highlight the world, to highlight the atmosphere of the world and the character more than just using them for the sake of bumping up your emotion because your film doesn't have any. So what can you do instead? Well, there's a few things I think you can do. I think that making a score yourself should be something you need to research anyway. Being able to do every role is important, but making a score is like a whole different art form. It's like, you're doing a whole different kind of it's like, you've got to learn chords, you've got to learn how to fucking play a piano or how to play a guitar sometimes just to be able to start down this road. Now we have Cubase programs, different audio programs score. I use Cubase. I learned this from my dad who became a score composer who used to be in a band, so it's useful to have that, quite lucky to have that. But if you know a score composer, you've got to work closely with them for a start. Close enough so that maybe they're almost in the next room. I was lucky enough, as I say, to work with my dad on the scores, but you can actually, you want to be able to have that relationship where it's just back and forth, and it's not like you're just sat behind them the entire time saying like, well, what do you think we should do for this scene? Or, I'll give it to you, you do the job, send it back to me. It's your film, man. You're gonna rely on someone for the most fundamental part of it. You need to be working with them the entire time, saying, well, I got this really cool sound on the Morans whilst I was down by the docks. Is there any way we can kind of incorporate that with a little bit of the sound that you gave me earlier of one of those VSTs? I really like this VST as well, this kind of scratching sound or something. That really is effective for, at this moment because it makes it very atmospheric. If we could somehow distort the seagulls or stretch out Je ne regrette rien to be the boom, 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 boom in Inception, true story, that's what happened. It's really just stretched out Je ne regrette rien. Try it, go on YouTube, listen to it, it goes closer, and then that's Je ne regrette rien, which makes perfect sense because it's a film dealing with time, so we're stretching it out. Fucking genius, and and that's why that sound became its own phenomenon. It became its own thing, which people just used then after that. In every single trailer after that, you had and that's really because of the genius in creating it. All this happens time and time again in popular culture, where the most genius thing is just then copied and copied. The most interesting things to me is like the of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. I think that was a pretty good rendition of it. Ennio Morricone scores. Listen to those. Listen to how different a composer he is to, say, Hans Zimmer. It's very kind of, classical, straightforward, even though he does think outside the box. Of course he does. He's an artist, for Christ's sake. But he's making scores in a very kind of Western way, whereas Ennio Morricone is going completely, does he even care about staying to the fucking beat? Does he? He goes wild. He goes absolutely nuts, and I don't know a lot about score composition. I have sat there with Cubase putting the blocks together like I'm playing a game of fucking Tetris, or I'm trying to, it's almost like I'm playing a computer game where I can just build blocks and then suddenly I've got some kind of emotional cues. You don't actually have to be that kind of musically oriented. I can maybe carry a tune, but I can't fucking, I don't know really how to play a lot of instruments. So, and I certainly didn't know any kind of chords or any keys until I started learning score composition and working with my father and doing things that way. And we would watch the footage and go, or sometimes we would just look at a photograph and just let it sink in and just go, wow, this night at Boston, man, what would that sound like? What would listen to the sounds, listen to the, look at the photos, look at the kind of, listen to the train coming in. What is it, man? What is it? Boom, 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 boom. Bit lighter, and just do it this way. And just, build something from that. Then that becomes your tune. That builds into a tune that you realise that your film is in like the key of E or something. I don't know. Key of E. Is that even and then you can kind of like come back and then make that tune and then have another tune, and then you're building motifs then for your characters, and you're building different character themes. And I don't really like the term character theme because, you know, even though saying Once Upon a Time in the West, it made sense to have different character themes which interact with each other. It's really, that's like, the character is so important, and I always say the character is important. That's to get the point across. Really, atmosphere is the most important thing. Really, cinematic language is the most important thing, because did Hitchcock care about character? Not so much, but did his films have some kind of suspense to the soundtrack? Abso-fucking-lutely, right? Did The Departed? It had a score. Yeah, it had a great score, and it had Dropkick Murphys, and that's because of the world that we're in, because of the situation that we're in. You know, this is Boston after all. What else do they listen to? They listen to everything, obviously, but you know, what is the kind of... there's no surprise that I listened to that on the way in today, because it's like, yeah, fighting Irish spirit kind of thing. And you know, everyone's Irish when they're in Boston, right? And so you watch the film, you get encapsulated in the world, and it sets it apart from its predecessor, the film which inspired it, Infernal Affairs, which also had its own unique score and unique way of, you know, putting you in Hong Kong at that time, at the two different times, at the, you know, for the three films, for the trilogy, they go on different cues, different motifs, different wavelengths, and they get you into the atmosphere. This is the point. Now, it isn't all doom and gloom just because you can't use songs anymore, you know. This is the rules of the game, unfortunately, nowadays, you know. Even when Scorsese was making Mean Streets, he had trouble getting permission for the last time the Rolling Stones song. He wanted to use the Rolling Stones because it was a signature of the world and the atmosphere of that time. He wanted to use certain other songs which were a signature of the different type of world at that time in the same film. And he couldn't get the permission for that. Right, so you got to work with what you've got. Now, thankfully, he could use Jumpin' Jack Flash for that famous scene, but he couldn't use The Last Time, right? So what went missing? What was lost because of that? Not much, because you make a fucking film out of it, man. You know, it's easy. You just make a film. That's your art. You can do whatever you don't need a song to make a film. You can have a shot of the wide with just sounds of the song is the wind. The song is what's going on. And utilising that sound and taking everything out, stripping it down and using silence more effectively than using sound. Because that is how you do sound design. You play with silence. You first start with silence and then figure out what kind of songs and sounds trip the audience's mind at a certain point to get them to think something happened when it didn't, or get them into a particular feeling or trance, so that they kind of enter your world on a deep subconscious level. They don't even know they've done it yet, and yet they're in. And once you've hooked them, you could just keep doing shots of the fucking harbour, and you've got them. You could do that. I mean, it's like, maybe after a while it'll get a bit boring, 3 or 4 shots, but you know, keep doing things like this, keep thinking about film in this way of having maybe a separate audio script, you know, maybe something which creates a second story of atmosphere that's going on as well as the visuals. You know, and sometimes when there's a character in a certain shot, maybe don't have sound. Daring, innit? You know, going back to the days of silent film, or guess what? It was almost better then. It was almost more effective cinematic language then, and pure cinema then. Because, and I'm not saying, oh, we should go back to the days of silent film. No, of course not. Because, you know, people have certain expectations, and yeah, you could do a film like that and welcome it completely, of course. Everyone should welcome that, but whatever your art is. But there is a certain skill which was lost, a craftsmanship which was lost by going into, you know, visuals. And people hear me say this and they think I think that sound's not important. I truly think it really is important, but there is a craftsmanship of sound which was lost on behalf of the director and the scriptwriter. You know, when Hitchcock made The Birds, he came from an era of silent film, so he knew that every single sound had to be written in the script, almost like a sound script, more than the actual details of the plot and the character and the idea. one of the most effective things for sound really is to be able to repeat a sound. And that sounded really stupid. But my point is that if you're able to repeat a sound, then whatever emotion you have on that third one is taken from the first one. So you're building on top of something. So if you hear a pocket watch going off in the third act where you've heard it in the first act, your mind, it's effective, right? Because your mind will think back to the first time you heard it, and it will become more powerful every time you're able to do that, as long as you do it at the right point. Timing, like any good joke, is, timing, like any kind of repeated joke. You can't just repeat a joke over and over again and get it to work every single time. That's not really how the timing works in comedy. Sometimes it can be changed, altered as well, slightly, so it's almost like you can hear the character of the sound repetition changing as it evolves, as the type of character of the sound grows, as the story changes, as it becomes its own kind of metaphor for what's going on. And this is something which you've figured out all on your own as an audience, after the fact, to be condescending, is after the fact you've, put this together. It's not something necessarily that has to be so planned. But when you discover that you can just do this with the sound, that you can build outwards from it, and just start by having these singular sounds, which might be nothing like a seagull or something, or the hum of the electrics or something. These things become world details that then can be used again and again, like a tool that you can drag out again and again. The same is true of shots, cinematic language. The same is true of certain lines of dialogue, because dialogue is just sound, and obviously the sound thing is true of props and characters. If you see a character again and again, it could mean something. The most obvious one is saying, like, bringing out the dead. This is the one thing I don't like about Bringing Out the Dead, really. One of the things I don't like about Bringing Out the Dead. I think it's a great film, but when he sees the ghost from his past, and it's kind of like so on the nose, and maybe it appeals to some people. That kind of, it's certainly a haunting image. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to buy an audio recorder, like a Marantz, or like a Rode microphone and a Marantz. I want you to go out and walk around your town one night or 2 nights, or maybe in the summer where it's a lot nicer, but also it wouldn't hurt to go out in the winter. I'm in the winter right now, and actually get different types of sounds, because it's going to be a lot more desolate in the winter. Stands to reason, doesn't it? Everyone goes indoors. Summer, you've got people walking around relaxed, but so you're going to get different sounds wherever you go, and just capture that sound, just capture it off to the side, run around, get close-ups to that sound, just capture like different ambiances and see what you can do with that. Capture individual, even in your kitchen. I used to record sounds in my kitchen, like scraping of credit cards, or dishes kind of clanging together. So one of the things I captured by accident was the kind of hum and fans of my courier rally when I was making my courier film. Also a clock gong I captured by accident. I also captured a woman walking down an alleyway on the phone, saying, a distinctly Brummy woman saying, "He had me on the wrong tax code." And I was like, that is fucking perfect. The whole idea of workers and being Birmingham and having the details of the city and the atmosphere, that is everything I'm trying to get across in these videos that you need to do. The atmosphere of the world, capturing it by accident, by random, not by planning that. You can't plan that, you can't make this shit up. One human being cannot possibly write a great script like that, and yeah, you're gonna reel off a list of loads of human beings who are able to write great scripts, but not me and not you, right? Maybe you are as good as Aaron Sorkin. I don't fucking know, and I don't really care. All I know is that this way works, right? And writing scripts on the day, like Wong Kar-wai does sometimes, or going about it in a Werner Herzog way, where it's like, I will do this idea, and taking it on like that, and just kind of walking around capturing, not garbage collecting, but capturing purposefully things which you know are going to be good. So you know coming down to the harbour is going to get you some good sounds. You don't just go out randomly capturing sounds. Maybe you go to your world, whatever that world is, whatever world you've cultivated, and record sounds from there. Even you can understand your world more from doing this. Then you can take it back to the score composer and say, listen to this fucking sound, isn't that good? What can you do with that? Or even conversely, you can fucking listen to the score on location and kind of walk around figuring out what your world is from that. Or you can use that score to walk around your world and just kind of get more into the headspace of the characters, so you can talk to the actors a bit better, which is really useful, because maybe the actors won't feel a lot from it. It's certainly worth playing it to them. Now, if you want to see a lot more of these videos, if you want to see my topics ranging from character to cinematic language to atmosphere to sound to score composition to anything from the philosophy of filmmaking, from just films that you maybe should be watching, I go through all these topics like really in depth quite a lot of the time, and what I'm trying to do is build this kind of like full curriculum of different topics which can be really explored and really kind of, as time goes on, just kind of mastered and dissecting each film one by one, including my own work, including the stuff that's going forward in my own journey. So if you guys are going on a similar kind of journey and you need someone to follow and to kind of work along with and to kind of be a kind of mentor figure for that, then I realise I'm just inviting myself to be your mentor, but this is what I'm planning to do. For that, I'm going to need some money. I'm going to need to be able to fund going out to places like this. I'm going to need to be able to fund making my films, and this is what I want to do for a full-time job. This is, honestly, I love doing this. So if you want to give some money and actually get access to these videos, I went to Boston, I went to New York, I went to Philadelphia, I've been to Vienna, I've been to Prague, I went to all these fancy places. But the reason why I went to these fancy places is because for a start, I wanted to go on a holiday, but I also had to teach there. I had to show you guys absolutely that I am dead serious about this, not just as like a this is how you set up a camera, this is how you want to be using the triangle of exposure and all this, and whilst all of these technical things are important and almost cinematic language to like a mid shot, medium shot, long shot is important, 3-act structure is important, right? But the fact is that a film can be open-ended, so what the fuck is a 3-act structure? The fact is you can do whatever the fuck you like, really. It's just how it's judged in retrospect. Was it good in retrospect? So is it an artistic piece? And if you guys agree, why don't you join up? Why don't you actually go down, press the link, and find these videos, pay for them, and get access to them. And I'll really appreciate that, and I'll be able to make more of them, and I'll be able to fund doing them maybe at a higher production value. Maybe I'll get like some kind of shots of films going on in the corner at the time as well, and that'd be really cool to be able to dissect films as I'm talking about them, maybe. And we shall see where we end up. But the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I get a little bit of support, and you guys are going to get some great content because of it, because I will just not stop talking about film and the stuff I have to talk about, the philosophy, the depth that I want to go to in this is like, I'm going into my own psychology, let alone, a filmmaker's kind of how far you can go with cinematic language and the philosophy of how you make a film. It's like, is there just
one way to make a film, or is that multiple ways, or is that whole there's multiple ways thing a big lie? So click the link, get those bloody classes going, and you start now. We'll both build up our knowledge together. I encourage fucking comments which are gonna talk about this, which are gonna talk about, you know, how we can go a bit further with some of these ideas. I'm working it out the same way you are. I'm learning just as you are, just as smart as Scorsese is still learning now. I want him to be on this channel talking to him about, you know, what the fuck is film doing now? You know, where do we go from here now that the greats have come and gone, and now the new greats are here? And now we've got digital, and it's all a bit different, but it's still going to the roots of cinematic language and philosophy. It's like, what can we do with this? Where can we go?